Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Coach Chrysler's Convos. Today, I am joined by a new friend. Her name is Elizabeth. Hello, Elizabeth. How are you?
Hello, I am fantastic. It's just wonderful to be here. Thank you, Chrysler.
Well, I appreciate you joining the conversation. And for those of you that are new to Coach Chrysler's Convos, this is just a place where people are welcome to share their personal journey of health and healing using functional medicine. So that's what we're going to be talking about with Elizabeth today. But before we get to that, Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Okay, I'm Elizabeth and I'm from Erie, Pennsylvania. I grew up in Northwestern Pennsylvania all my life, but I moved to Erie, met my husband, and we married, had two children. They're adult children now, and I'm actually the grandmother of a grandmother of one child. And my major was, I had a bachelor's in music. So I was a singer, and then I got my master's in communication studies, and I worked in radio, Christian radio, for about 7 or 8 years. And I was a morning show host at a local Christian radio station. I also dabbled in a little bit of um, television. I did like a home improvement type show that was local. It was all local. And I did some television commercials as well. And I performed on stage. So I have a kind of an eclectic background. And then probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I actually left my radio position to pursue art. So I dabbled in that. I started my own art business where I create from driftwood and beach glass, which I find along the shores of Lake Erie. And that was what I was doing when I had a major shift in my life.
Oh, wow. Wow, I am hearing two major things come through. One is a creative vibe from you, whether that be through art or music or, doing home improvement things, but also a love of learning because all of those things, you're constantly kind of learning and dabbling and figuring things out. And so that's really cool. Um, so let's talk a little bit about why you are now a health coach. So what brought you to that sphere?
Sure. About 4 years ago, I needed to have a major surgery, but it was relatively routine. So I
Mhm.
needed to have a complete hysterectomy. And that went well. All of that was going along smoothly, except afterwards, I had some pretty severe pain.
Mhm.
And it was suspected that I had a bladder infection. So I was prescribed an antibiotic. We were waiting for the test to come through. And by that time, I had taken so many pills to get through the surgery. And I just wanted to feel better. And usually
Yeah.
I'm that person that I won't take it unless I absolutely need it. I read the pamphlets that come with it. And by then I was exhausted. I just wanted to feel better.
Mhm.
And so I took the pill. It was an antibiotic, and um, I was starting to feel yucky that day. You know, my back was hurting, my neck, and I'm like, "Well, you dummy, you just overdid it. You know, you went to the doctors, you went to the store, you went to rehearsal because it was almost Easter weekend, and I
Oh,
also
wow.
lead
Yeah.
I lead worship at one of our local churches." And so, it was Easter. Like, I got to be there for Easter.
Right, right.
When I woke up the next morning, still not feeling well, I had taken two antibiotics, two of the pills. I still had it in my head, wow, I really overdid it, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and then I took the third pill, and by a few hours after that third pill, I knew something was not right.
Mhm.
My knees started popping. my joints hurt. The more I sat, the stiffer I got. And my husband had come home from work and I had been laying on a couch. He was cooking dinner. I went to get up off the couch and I couldn't move. And I was
Wow.
so stiff. I had a really difficult time sitting up and getting off the couch. And the more I moved, the easier it got. But I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning paralyzed because if I don't keep moving, this is what's happening. And
Yeah.
so I contacted my doctor, and it was after hours. So I got an on-call doctor and I got a call back from someone in the practice that I'd never been to before.
Of course.
And he immediately wanted me to go to the emergency room. And I'm like, I'm not going to the ER. A few years earlier, my daughter had a really severe reaction to an antibiotic, and I saw what they put her through in the ER. And they
Mm,
still would never say that it was the antibiotic for sure. But we know as soon as she got off of it, she got better.
right.
And now she can't take that antibiotic ever. Um, but I knew if I went to the ER that they would find out I had major abdominal surgery. Then they were going to be chasing everything because if I couldn't walk, then maybe something, in spine got touched, or I don't even know. And so I was on the couch crying, and my phone rang, and it was my doctor who was on call. It was very confusing. To this day, we still don't know. I think it was
Mm,
just an act of, God
yeah.
that
Yeah.
my doctor called, and he listened to what I had to say. And he said, I think you're right. I think that it could be the antibiotic. I want you to stop taking it. Don't go to the ER because that's what they're going to do. And,
Right.
but he said it might take a while. Little did I know just what that meant.
Yeah.
He
Wow.
said it might take a while for it to go away.
Yeah.
So I was in excruciating pain. The damage was already done. I
Right.
stopped taking the antibiotic, but the trigger was already pulled. And I was in terrible pain, terrible stiffness. I had, from my surgery, had a prescription painkiller.
Hmm.
And so what I would do is, in order to sleep at night, I would take a pill and I would sleep until it wore off, and then the pain would come back so intensely. Um, and I lost weight. I lost like 12 pounds rapidly. I mean, I was just, it was terrible to watch. I
Yeah.
couldn't eat,
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep. I couldn't brush my hair myself. I couldn't get dressed. I couldn't lift my arms higher than, because it was in my shoulders. It was in my
Wow.
hips. It was in my
Yeah.
back and my neck and all this inflammation that was triggered.
Hmm.
And so what ended up happening was my doctor ordered some blood work. My inflammation rate, my SED rate, they call it, was extremely high. It was like 80 something. And so he said, I suspect that what you have is something called polymyalgia rheumatica, or PMR for short. We'll just
Hmm.
call it PMR. And so, after I got off the phone, and of course, the treatment is another pill.
Right. Yeah.
So after I got off the phone, I looked it up, and it's something that people that over the age of 60 get. Now, I was 48 years old,
Wow.
and I really literally went from feeling like a healthy 48 to 84 or
Yeah.
older. I
Yeah.
was just so stiff and couldn't move.
It's so interesting because I'm sort of still stuck on the surgery that you had that was to the doctor was normal and routine,
Mm,
but for you, it turned into this really awful experience that cascaded into a number of different things. And I think for many people, you know, surgery is suggested, and maybe not even suggested, but it's almost commanded. It's like, you need to just do this, and it's not a big deal. It's routine. It'll be fine. There may be some side effects, but it'll be okay. It's kind of just weaved into the conversation as just being this normal thing, when it's invasive. You know, your body is being opened up, it's being exposed to a variety of different, you know, bacteria and viruses, and a healing process has to happen, and, you know, all of these different things take place. And so, you know, when we hear it's just routine, it's fine, it'll be okay, you know, a lot of people don't question that. We move forward trusting that the medical doctor has the answer, they're steering us in the right direction, and it'll be okay. And for you and many people, thousands of people just like you, have experienced, you know, similar outcomes, that after something isn't right. And what's really cool about your experience, what is that you didn't settle for just continuing what the doctor had said. You were
Right.
like, yeah, no, something's not right. I need to question this. I need to ask. I need to find out what's going on. And, you know, for anybody who's listening, I really want you to impress upon you and encourage you to take those same steps that Elizabeth did. Don't just take it and be like, oh, it'll be fine. It's okay. Ask the question, right? So I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Oh,
that just really stood out to me when you were sharing your story.
and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I don't want to give the impression that I just blindly went into that surgery. There was a lot of discussion leading up to that,
Hmm.
you know, and it was ultimately my decision,
Right.
feel forced into it or coerced into it. Um, I looked at all the facts. You know, basically, I had precancerous cells
Hmm.
in my body, and if I had the sight that I have today, and knowing what I know about functional medicine,
Hmm.
I may have made a different decision, but that's not where I was at the
Right.
time.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't want to give the impression that I just blindly went in to that surgery
Yeah.
without having really contemplated, you know. But again, it is a relatively routine surgery, and so
Hmm.
you go into it thinking, you know, the surgery is, I mean, there are risks.
Right.
You know, they do this every day, and honestly, it wasn't the surgery. It was the treatment after the surgery.
Hmm.
And even though the test results came back at the end of my appointment, and the gynecologist said, it won't hurt you to take the antibiotic.
Hmm.
In my mind, I'm like, okay, well, I trust the doctor. This is what she said. And maybe that's why I didn't look at the pamphlets, and, you know, and
Hmm.
she's operating from a place where she was trained. That
Right.
was the way that she was trained. So
Right.
I don't fault that doctor. Um, but it was my PCP, you know, who was really the one who walked me through the PMR journey.
Hmm.
And so I'll just kind of pick up where I left off. Um, I, I for a week I went without. I said, no, I'm going to fight this on my own. I'm going to change my diet. I'm going to change my lifestyle, and I did.
Hmm.
But it was just too much. It
Hmm.
was I was in too much pain. I couldn't live that way. So I did end up going on a steroid
Hmm.
to reduce the inflammation. That had its own challenges. And so
Yeah.
then I wasn't healing from the hysterectomy, and I'm 8 weeks out from the hysterectomy, and I was still bleeding. And the gynecologist said, "Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. You're not healing. It's the prednisone." So I went back to my doctor, and he said, "Okay, we're going to get you off of it. If you can manage it, we're going to do it." And he did a
Mhm.
fairly rapid taper. And by then I had 8 weeks of a new lifestyle.
Mm.
My diet was different. I was doing things differently. I was moving. I was doing more yoga and just trying to stretch. And um, so I had changed. So the taper
Mm.
I was able to do, and I believe that it is because of the functional medicine changes that I made.
Mhm.
Someone had told me when I initially got injured about functional medicine, and so I started looking into it. Now I didn't have insurance when all of this was happening,
Yeah.
and so I wasn't able to go to a functional medicine doctor. But I started applying the principles on my own. I was already gluten free, and
Mhm.
I was mostly dairy free, but I
Mhm.
still like cheese and I love ice cream.
Yeah.
I cut back, and I wasn't really watching my sugar though. And
Mm.
so that was one of the other things that I really cut back on was the sugar. I started adding some supplements that were um, relative to what I was dealing with the
Mhm.
PMR. And so by the time we came to the taper, I had 8 weeks of this lifestyle change.
Yeah.
Um, and so I
So
was able
let
to
me
manage.
ask you a question, if I may. When you heard this diagnosis of PMR, what was your feeling like? I
Mhm.
mean, what was that like for you to hear? You've been dealing with this situation, your body's not responding well to an antibiotic, and you've already kind of been in this, and now you get this diagnosis. What was that like for you?
So I initially thought, I'm 48 years old. Is this what the rest of my life is going to be like?
Mm.
And what kind of future am I going to have? At that time, I wasn't a grandma, but I was thinking about grandchildren. Am I going to be around for them? Am I
Yeah.
even going to be able to enjoy them? Am I even going to be able to pick them up? You
Yeah,
know,
that's wow, what a powerful question. And I think, again, people watching and listening that are in similar situations where they're experiencing the severe pain, or they've gotten that diagnosis, especially of things like cancer, or Alzheimer's, or whatever it is. They're probably thinking something similar, like, does this mean, you know, am I going to be able to, right? They're thinking now so much about their future, not just about what's happening right now. Yeah, what a powerful question. So, wow. So when you started looking into functional medicine, and kind of finding out about the variety of things, and techniques that were being used by, practitioners, um, what was something that really kind of drew you in?
great question. Uh, I think it was just the idea that when you give the body what it needs, it knows what to do. The
Mm.
body wants to heal. It is created to heal. It's created to fix itself.
Mhm.
And when you give it the right tools, when you give it the right nutrition, the right movement, the right conditions, um, and by conditions, I mean like lower your stress levels,
Mhm.
in that rest and digest, because that's where the body heals in rest. And it made so much sense to me. I'm a Christian, and when I think about the way God designed the body and the way
Mhm.
God designed creation and the things that He gave us to for our bodies,
Mhm.
I've always kind of been a firm believer that if God made it, eat it. If man made it, don't.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
just makes so much sense. I think that's what really drew me in was just like,
Mhm.
this is this is it just makes total sense that
Yeah.
everything we have that we our body needs has already been provided for us. We just need to utilize it.
Yeah. When you mentioned using the proper tools, it brought this image to my mind. I like to use tools. I love power tools. I even bought myself a power tool set on Father's Day weekend one year. And I was thinking about if you are putting something together or building something, you need to have the right tools, right? And if you're hanging a picture on the wall, you're not going to use a screwdriver to try to bang in the nail, right? You need a hammer, the proper tool. And so that just kind of came to my mind when you were talking. And the other thing that I think was really great about what you were saying earlier about the tools that you began to put in place for yourself is that you chose a certain type of movement, right? You were doing yoga and you were stretching, but that's not something that everybody enjoys or maybe is beneficial to everybody in the same way. And so that's something else I love about functional medicine is that it is personalized, right? So you took a path of, you know, um, staying away from gluten and cutting back on your dairy and those types of things, and for some people those don't bother them as much, and so that may not necessarily be the path that they take, right? So I want to talk a little bit more about those tools, those things that you did. So you mentioned gluten and dairy and sugar. But were there any other nutritional things that you did or any changes that you made that you found beneficial?
Nutritional wise, I kind of eliminated all sugar, so
Mhm.
all simple carbs. And I'm now following more of a a modified Mediterranean diet. I am actually working with a functional medicine doctor now.
Yay!
Yeah, so at the Cleveland Clinic, and Dr. Modlow, he is wonderful. Highly recommend him if you're in the Cleveland area. Um, but I really just cut back on all sugar. And so even though I was gluten free, I still wasn't really eating gluten free foods.
Mm,
I was eliminating grains in
mhm,
general, eliminating your starches, your corn, your potatoes, those kind of things.
mhm,
Um, but you know what? The only reason I did that is because I listened to my body.
mm,
And if you listen to your body, you'll know. You'll know the foods that you can and can't eat. Your body
mhm,
will give you signals. And trust your instincts. Trust your intuition. Um, and this is one of the things, like with my health coaching business, that I am focused on. It's creating health for your future, um, and that you take ownership.
mhm,
Nobody knows your body better than you. The doctors don't know your body like you do.
mhm.
And I'm sure that people can relate when you go to the doctor and you tell them this is what's happening, and they say, oh, it's nothing. Everybody, oh, you're just getting old. You
Right.
need to get out more. You need to do that. Listen to your body, follow your intuition,
Mhm,
and don't ever let anyone dismiss you for something that you feel isn't quite right.
mhm,
You know,
mhm.
um,
Yeah.
and, and so with the functional medicine approach, it is tailored to the individual. So what worked for me, won't necessarily work for you. It might not, but you have your own journey to follow. You have your own lifestyle prescription to follow.
Mhm. Absolutely. So what other types of movement do you enjoy doing that really benefit you and kind of refresh you and give you energy?
Yeah, so I do a lot of walking. I
Mhm.
have a walking group that we walk with. I've been working on incorporating more strength training because as you get older, it's a little bit harder to maintain that muscle. Um, so strength training, one of my favorite things to do is to get on the rebounder, which is like
Mm,
a mini trampoline. I love it. It's so much fun. And there are some great people to follow online that you can get some great workouts that are fun and it's almost like dancing with the music
yeah.
and now as functional medicine health coaches, we learned about shaking and dancing. And it's a great stress reliever that
Mhm.
some of the indigenous tribes would do shaking, like just shaking their whole body, and that's how they dance. And it's just a great way to really get to some of those inner deep parts that have been traumatized, and just to release some of that. And so I feel like the rebounder is kind of my way of shaking and dancing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
I love.
awesome. Yeah, I actually got a mini trampoline as well. And those workouts, man, they are woo, they get you sweating a little bit. So yeah, they're great. They're great workouts. And they can help with lymphatic drainage and detoxification and things like that. So yeah, it's been a really cool, fun thing. And something else I do, I also love dancing. And so something I've done with my kids is the days that they are out of school, they have to do some movement, and we do fun things like Go Noodle or Cuckoo Kangaroo, where we watch a video and we follow the dance moves or the exercises and we do it together. So again, it really just depends on your lifestyle, where you're at, what stage you're at in life. It doesn't always look the same. You don't always have to do the same exercises. And, so yeah, that's great. That's a variety of things. And it sounds like so many things that you enjoy doing. So, thinking about Elizabeth today and comparing to, what you went through during that time where you were dealing with the pain and kind of figuring out how to manage and, all of that. How does how does Elizabeth today feel in comparison to that time?
I remember being on a walk shortly after all of this was happening. And I think I might have either been tapering off the prednisone or had just been off of it. And I remember I was always thinking, I just want to get back to where I was. I just
Mm,
want to get back to, 48-year-old Elizabeth before PMR. And I just, on this walk, I think I might have even been listening to a podcast, and he was in a similar thing, and he said, I just realized that was never going to happen,
mm.
and I didn't want it to happen. And I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And the more I thought about what he was saying, I realized I don't want to go back to 48-year-old Elizabeth because she wasn't really that healthy. She
Mm,
wasn't really in that great of shape. I mean, I didn't have any conditions,
right.
but I didn't know what I know now.
Hmm.
And so for me, that was a shift. That was a big shift when I realized, you know what, PMR is not the worst thing to happen to me. It's the best thing to happen to me
Mm,
because now I know. Now I understand. And I truly see it as a blessing because I wouldn't be where I am now. I wouldn't be a functional medicine certified health coach if it were not for PMR. I wouldn't have the health that I have now were it not for PMR. I wouldn't have the life that I have now.
mhm.
And so I think that's the biggest thing for me is I made that shift in my thinking that this is the worst day of my life to this is going to be the best day of my life and this is why. And
Wow, what significant self-discovery for you. That's huge.
yeah. And so on the days where, I'm not perfect, I still get aches and pains.
Mhm.
I still eat things that I shouldn't. We're just coming off the holidays and
Yeah.
it's hard. I get it. I know. But on the days that I might have a little ache in my knee, or I might have, whatever. I just remember, where I was and where I am now. And they're not the same.
Mhm.
I mean, it's better, definitely a better place now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I know that anybody who is watching is definitely going to be encouraged by your what you've shared with us today. So, as we kind of come to a close, I would love to hear from you. Just something that you would say to the person is in that who's in that spot right now. They have the pains, they are on the medication they don't necessarily want to be on, or they are questioning, you know, something doesn't seem to be right. What would you say to them?
Mhm. Well, I had a client who was talking to me about movement and why it was important for her to move. And I asked her that. I said, why do you feel that you need to move? Why is it so important? She said, well, I feel like if I don't move, I'm going to become like that gray house
Mm,
where the vines climb over it, the trees grow inside it, the wild animals take charge of it. And what she was talking about was this home on the Hamptons called Grey Garden. And it was this exquisite home. It became dilapidated when the mother and the daughter didn't have the means or the ability to take care of it. Um, it was scheduled to be torn down. Some benevolent relatives came in, helped them fix it up. But a few years later, it was worse than it was before.
mm,
And sometimes our health can be like that house. When it's not properly taken care of, it falls apart. When this happens, we go to the doctor to get it fixed. Sometimes it's a little bit better, but eventually it just gets bad again, or it gets
mm,
worse than it was before. And so, what I want to encourage people to do is to take ownership of your health.
mhm,
It wasn't until someone came in and bought that home and spent years renovating it and refurbishing it and rejuvenating it and putting the work into it that years later that house went on the market for $19 million.
wow.
It sold for 15.5.
Hmm,
Today it is this glorious home with this amazing story. And so that's what I want to tell you is that, you know what, even if it feels like, you have no future, that there's no hope that this is what it's going to be like, when you take ownership of your health, you put in that work of restoring and renovating, you can take something that, seems like it's a total waste, like they wanted to level this house, but you can create something beautiful out of that shambles.
mm,
So that's what I want to tell you. It's not impossible. You can create health. You can own your future health if you take ownership of it. So don't wait another day.
wow, that is amazing. What a beautiful story to share. Oh my gosh, I just got this image as you were talking, and it was kind of just weaving through my head about this home and its history, and now its beautiful future, and that's how we can be as well. So thank you very much for sharing that and for sharing all the things that you did about your personal health journey. I so appreciate it. If people want to connect with you, if they want to find out more about you, where can they go?
Yes. So I do have an account on Instagram. You can find me there. It's Grey Gardens Health Coaching. And I'm working on a Facebook page, so that'll be up soon. But you can also find me personally on Facebook if you want to, direct message me, Elizabeth Kelly. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Y'all go check out Gray Gardens on Instagram, follow Elizabeth. And of course, if you have enjoyed anything about this conversation, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the beautiful people that I've connected with through Coach Chrysler's Convos. And until next time, I will see ya. Bye.